Hello students, welcome to today's video lesson. Today, we shall discuss a very touching tribute paid by one friend to another. Amitava Ghosh, the writer of this account, pays a tribute to his late friend, the famous poet Agha Shahid Ali. The writer recalls the first time the poet Agha Shahid Ali spoke about his approaching death. It was April 25th, 2001, and the writer had telephoned him to remind him that they had to attend a lunch invitation at a friend's house. He also reminded him that he was going to pick him up from his apartment. Agha Shahid Ali had been undergoing treatment for his cancerous brain tumor for 14 months. He still had the strength to walk around on his own and be lucid. However, he showed occasional lapses of memory. Ghosh had heard the poet fumble around looking for his book, where he jotted down his daily schedules and plans. He then complained of loss of visibility in a witty manner. The writer did not know how to respond to the poet's mention of death in such a light manner. He tried comforting his friend by saying that he would be all right. Shahid, however, ignored his polite attempt at comforting him and asked him to write something about him after his death. Amitava Ghosh was shocked at such a request and tried to comfort the poet. While he was still on the call, the writer looked out of his window and saw the corner of Shahid's building. Shahid had been living in Manhattan when he was diagnosed with a cancerous brain tumor in the year 2000. He moved to Brooklyn to live near his younger sister, Samita, a teacher at the Pratt Institute. As Shahid laughed at his friend's reassurances, the writer realized that he was being serious about the request. He wanted to be remembered through written words and not by the word of mouth. Writing has been considered a method of immortalizing somebody. A written piece is read years after a person's death, thereby making his memories immortal. Shahid knew that writers for whom things become real only in the process of writing have an inbuilt resistance to deal with loss and grief. He knew that the writer's instincts would have made him look for reasons to not write about his friend's death. That the writer would come up with several excuses to avoid writing about Shahid was something which Shahid knew. He knew that the writer would probably think he was not a poet himself, or that many people knew Shahid better than his short friendship with him had warranted and would thus write better about him. However, he blocked all chances of these excuses and entrusted the writer with the charge of writing about him after his death. The writer thus began recording their conversations and writing down the dates and the gist of their conversations. The writer had known about Agha Shahid Ali before he had met him. Shahid Ali's 1997 collection, The Country Without a Post Office, had made a powerful impact on the writer. The writer had not heard such a voice as Shahid's before. It was at once lyrical and much disciplined, engaged and yet introspective. His voice had a certain bardic throw. A bard is an ancient minstrel or court poet who composed and recited verses glorifying the deeds of heroes and kings. In 1998, the writer had quoted a line from Shahid's The Country Without a Post Office in an article which briefly spoke of Kashmir. Back then, all the writer knew about Shahid was that he was born in Srinagar and studied in Delhi University. Although both of them had been in the university at the same time for a brief period, they had never met. They were introduced through a common friend. However, they became friends only when Shahid moved to Brooklyn. Being in the same neighborhood, they met often. Although Shahid was seriously ill by this time, his illness did not stop him from building a new friendship. They shared a mutual love for Rogan Josh, Roshnara Begum and Kishore Kumar. They also shared a mutual indifference to cricket and an attachment to old Bombay films. Due to his approaching death, little details and conversations in life became matters of great significance to Shahid and also the writer. Soon, the poet's house became a joint for several gatherings. It began with the writer Suketu Mehta's visit for lunch at the poet's place. They planned on an adda, or an agenda-less gathering for relaxation and conversations. From then on, the house became a regular meeting spot for several writers and poets. Shahid was also fond of the camera and loved the attention when a television crew visited to film him. He was a person with an ability to convert even the most boring, mundane days into magical moments. The writer recounts an incident where he had gone to the hospital along with Shahid's brother, Iqbal, and his sister, Hina. They were there to bring home Shahid after a surgery. that was meant to relieve the pressure on his brain. He had previously undergone several unsuccessful surgeries, and his tumor showed its edges outlined by metal sutures on his shaven scalp. When it was time to take leave, a hospital escort offered to take Shahid in a wheelchair. Shahid insisted on walking out on his own. However, he failed to do so after a few steps, and Iqbal went back to get the wheelchair. He leant against the hospital wall, and a certain rapture or euphoria descended on him. When the hospital help returned with the wheelchair, Shahid smiled at him and asked him where he was from. The man replied that he was from Ecuador. Shahid explained that he always wanted to learn Spanish in order to read Garcia Lorca, the Spanish poet and dramatist. Shahid was a jovial person who loved the company of people around him. Every evening witnessed an unending party in his living room. He loved the spirit of festivity, as it left him with no time to be depressed. Shahid's apartment on the 7th floor of a renovated building was spacious and airy. There was a cavernous study on the top floor and a wide terrace which provided a view of the Manhattan skyline across the East River. Shahid loved this view of the Brooklyn waterfront, slipping like a ghat into the East River under the glittering lights of Manhattan. What was the inside of Shahid Ali's home like? What were some of the other hobbies of Shahid Ali? How does the writer describe his friends' last moments on earth? We shall find out in the second part of the video lesson. So, see you soon in our second video based on this chapter.